If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government.
Welcome to Coach Thomason's class. Whether you're in Coach Thomason's, Miss Brown's, or Mr. Miller, all are welcome. Today we're unpacking a loaded concept, the Articles of Confederation and Constitution. If you have any questions about this, ask your teachers. They know they will be glad to discuss the AOC or the Constitutional Convention with you. Ready? Let's go.
Freed from British control, each state pursues its own independent course. Each state adopts its own system of government and prints its own currency. Some use English pounds as the standard. Others use Spanish dollars. For most Americans, this local independence of the separate states is just fine. They are fiercely proud of their liberty to control their own fate. That's why they fought the Revolution, and this is what they have won.
And this led to the formation of something called Articles of Confederation. Now, under the Articles, we see different things happening. We see each state printing its own currency. First and foremost, so if you live in South Carolina, you would have a South Carolinian currency. If you have Pennsylvanian money, it would be different. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, this might not be necessarily a big thing, but let's say you're a billionaire. We'll say a billionaire. A billionaire sitting in Georgia. And now you want to go to South Carolina to take out this hot gal you see at maybe the market or some kind of sort of nature like that. And you come along with all your big carriages, all your money. You try to go to this beautiful restaurant, you know, try to get to know the girl. You go to pay the tab, and what happens? They don't accept the money. So now you're mad. Now you're like, I'm trying to impress this girl. Well, it's not working for you. So we start to see a little bit of tension occurring. And then we start thinking, okay, what about the northern territories, these northwestern areas? What is happening with this? Massachusetts says, hey, it's ours. Pennsylvania says, sorry, bruh, no, that's not happening.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
So they start seeing tension. Each state had to unanimously agree to any taxation going on, and every state was responsible for its own state legislatures.
I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Now this is going to start getting hairy whenever you start seeing people that served during the Revolution fought for this great country we now are learning in, and now they're thinking, hey, when am I going to get paid? People like Daniel Shea.
But during this time, all is not well with the country as a whole. At Mount Vernon, George Washington is receiving a series of letters from friends and former military men. Alexander Hamilton writes from Congress that without an army or a navy, America is completely powerless to deal with international problems.
England should have long ago returned our lands in the West. Spain blocks our ships from the Mississippi. How do we defend our rights as a country? Do we have troops, a national treasury, or even a national government? We have a shadow of a federal government where 13 petty republics must agree on every point of every measure the Union wants to execute. The result? Nothing happens. The states have brought the wheels of national government to a standstill.
Who are just looking to get the payment they were promised. And so now we start seeing George Washington, our first president, our first presiding council member, has to say, how am I going to pay these men? So they suspend all of their debt. They say, no, it never happened. We do not owe you any money. Now let's not get it wrong. The AOC had some beneficials. The main thing is making new states. It made it very easy for new states to come into the Union, breaking down of very large states with different demographics. We start seeing this known as the ordinances, the ordinential clause in our Articles of Confederation. But it wasn't worth saving. And so we see our founding fathers all roll up to Pennsylvania yet again, and they say, okay, let's revise these articles. Now, they go there completely in the middle of the day. They don't want people to know our government is crap. That would make people scared. That would make people scared today, even though they say it constantly over Facebook.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh yeah!
they're starting to see, okay, what do we need to change? They realize we can't save it. It's gone. There's nothing worth saving in the Articles of Confederation. So as this kind of signifies the Articles of Confederation, it's thrown out. We don't use it anymore. And we start with this thing called the Constitutional Convention. Now, with the Constitutional Convention, there's a lot of ideas that are floating around. We need a federal army. We need somebody to enforce our laws. We need somebody to write our laws. We need somebody to make sure that those that are writing the laws are following a set code. But what is the set code? We have to write what we now know as the Constitution.
I don't understand these words. Come on, I can't do this.
Okay, everybody. Okay. If you all want to quiet down, I think we can start the play.
Now, James Madison is the penmanship of it. He is a representative from Virginia. He will later become our 4th president. And he, along with a man by the name of John Jay and another man named Alexander Hamilton, sit down and talk about having a strong federal government. And they write all of these arguments down in something called the Federalist Papers. Let's have a strong government. Let's not fall into the trap of the Articles of Confederation. But you start seeing issues with people like Thomas Jefferson. We just left a king. Why would we want to establish such a strong government? And they're fighting back and forth over issues. Now, we're going to look at these issues and we're going to see what you think about these issues. Now, our founding fathers are looking. They're saying, okay, how are we going to make our laws? Now, they have 2 systems that they really see come up. First, you have the Virginia plan. Now, Virginia, a humongous state, it has a lot of people. So it, of course, wants population to count as the #1 thing in order to get representation. Now, states like New Jersey have an issue like this because they're very small, and they believe that each state has their own equal say in representation, so they want the same amount for each state. Now, they have to think to themselves, what's going on? Do we do what New Jersey wants and have big states like Virginia, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts at the time say, you know what, this isn't for us, we're leaving, or worse, cause another war? So they hatch an idea. Let's have a bicameral legislature. Bi meaning 2, camerial meaning house. So a 2-house system. They take the idea of both. We'll have a population house, our House of Representatives. Representatives would be according to how many people you have in the state. Now this brings another big debate, but we'll talk about that in a second. The second house, known as the Senate, taking the name from the Great Senate of Greece, the Great Senate of Rome. Every big major house that makes laws is known as a Senate, and that's what they're kind of taking from this. So yes, #1, achieved. The next idea goes around the idea of representation. Who decides who are represented? Now the South has a very large slave population. South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia all have very large slave populations. And of course, they want them to be counted towards their population. Now this brings a big major point to the Northern. You don't want to treat them as human beings, but you want them to represent as a human being. It's a contradiction. And so they're starting to say, you can't have your slaves. In South Carolina, says, we're going to leave. We're going to take our ag elsewhere. We're going to take our money. We're going to take our slaves. And we're going to make our own country. They were cool with the Articles of Confederation because they had money. But states such as New York and New Jersey aren't benefiting from this. So they sit down and they talk. As me and Maurice sit here and talk to ourselves. Maurice, You want all of your slaves to count, but I can't do that. Instead, I will give you half. And Maurice looks at me and says, are you crazy? No, we are not going to take this. And he goes to walk away. I say, hang on, Maurice, hang on. This escalated very quickly. I'm sorry, my friend. I can't go along with the idea of having total representation, but let me give you 3/5. That's 60%. That's over 50. You still will have representation in Congress, but still I have to appease my friends. Maurice is thinking. He says, very good, I can deal with that. And we shake hands. The next thing we have to start looking at when we're talking about the Constitutional Convention is how do we get out of debt? Now the South wasn't in debt. They paid off their debt. They're rich planters. They don't need the help of the federal government. But the North are industrial. They're not getting paid by Britain. France is going through its own revolution about this time, and they're not buying our stuff. They need the reprieve. They need to pay off these debts. So they look to the South. Now, the South is not dumb about the situation. Instead of saying, you stupid, go away, they start thinking, what can we get out of this? And so you have a great compromise come up. First off, the nation's capital will be moved from Pennsylvania down to Washington, D.C. in the South, a district right in the Virginia area. Then you also see the slave trade. The people in the North, not needing slaves, wanted it to be completely abolished. So the South said, give us 20 years. After 20 years, the slave trade is done. We will no longer import slaves. Especially to the idea of how would you feel if you're from a country that does not have slavery, and then all of a sudden you see a slave market right in the middle of the nation's capital in Virginia. It would not go over real well. Now, what does the South have to do? They pay off the North debt. They make sure America does not start on such a terrible deficit that they cannot get themselves out of. The Constitution took a while to get ratified. The first state ratifying the Constitution, Delaware. That's why Delaware boasts on its license plate, first state Constitution. And it's the law-abiding document that we look at today. Now, the next principle we got to get into is the idea of the Bill of Rights. Now, Thomas Jefferson is throwing this in there saying we need protection from our government. The Federalists take these Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to our Constitution, and look them over. They say, okay, this video talks about a lot. We went very fast and I didn't go in extreme detail. You need to bring all of your questions to class and we will talk about them and I will answer them and we will come to all the agreements that we need to. This is Coach Thomason signing off. Good night.
World Wide Web? Is there a way to put this on just the American part? Oh, greetings! Today, I, Sam, the American Eagle, am here to offer you something never before seen on the internet. Culture, morality, and patriotism. You may proceed.